A motion by Helmut.
Welcome to Minutes by Minute. I'm Elgin Nichols.
And I'm Dave Kenny.
And we're here to talk about what goes on in the village, the township. You know, those government people that make laws and regulations that affect you out there.
That's right, Elgin. And whether you live in the village of Oxford, the village of Leonard, Oxford Township, or Addison Township, these are the people you went and elected. And the commissions and the committees that make decisions that directly affect you, whether you chose to go to that meeting or not. And the result can be a taxing situation. That's
yes.
right. They all said.
As David points out, if you don't attend these meetings, there's also a thing called humor that bubbles to the top sometimes, or sometimes it kind of lurks underneath the waves.
And of course, you know, if you choose, you can get on our website and click on programs. That's OCCTV.org, and click on programs. And every meeting that we ever record is on there. And you can set through the entire long version of it.
Right.
And see where you could have said something but didn't.
Right. And here's the point I want to make, is that it's unedited. That is to say that what you see is what really occurred. There's no editing goes on in any of these meetings.
Does the word verbatim mean anything?
Verbatim. Yeah.
Verbatim.
It does. And one more thing. One of us kind of has a tendency to spread rumors. I don't know. It'd be this guy, I'm pretty sure. Huh?
Well, I only give it the basic framework. You flesh it out.
Yeah, the frame looks pretty solid too when it ends up here. And actually, you almost talked me into it, you know.
No, if it's a really solid framework, that's a really good rumor.
That's right. Okay, well, let's get on with a few of the meetings, shall
All right.
we? The thing is, we have an abbreviated version on Minutes by Minute. Like he says, you can run for an hour, 2 hours in a regular meeting if you want to sit in on it. Or if you want to see the actual meeting by going to OCCTV.org and clicking on the proper meeting that you want to see. But this one here is roughly about 15 minutes in length.
And which may that be?
Which one may that be? There could be several ones. The first one we're going to talk about is the Village Council and Planning Commission joint meeting that they had on April 16th. And can you say smokin'?
Or token?
No, this one is actually smoking, because they're talking about marijuana.
Yeah.
Okay, and we'll get back to that one. The second meeting we're going to talk about is the regular meeting for the Pollyant Trail Management Council, which was held on April 17th. So let's get on with it, shall we?
Shall we?
We will.
Load 'em up.
All right, the Village Council and Planning Commission, they met on April 16th. Council, or Joe Frost, who's the chairman or the president, often. But Helmuth serves on that as well, and she's with the village.
That guiding star.
He is a guiding star. And we'll get into that guiding star portion of it in just a few moments here. Mike Sowell, who's the police chief, he was there as well. And CJ Kanakio, who is the leader, reporter. And
He's the editor of the Oxford Leader, yeah.
Yep. Does a great job out there, by the way. A lot of the pictures that you see in the leader, he's responsible for it. Very good photographer.
Yep.
Okay, but let's get on with it. They had the preliminaries, the Pledge of Allegiance, of course. The agenda was approved immediately. Bob Davis, the attorney, spoke, and it was very important, the portion of it that he had to say, because he talked about the framework and procedures in which the state would allow marijuana, both medical and for, shall we say, for fun?
And the background to that, of course, is the fact that at the last election, weren't there referendums where the voters approved?
70% of the village that voted voted for the marijuana to go through, legalized.
Did the state also have an issue?
An issue such as?
Voting on the sale of marijuana, or had they done that before?
Oh, they'd already done that.
Okay.
Pretty much.
The county doesn't have an interface in that, does it?
The county, actually, they have the ability to opt in or opt out as well.
As a county?
As a county. And the township has the ability to do that, and the village has the ability to do that as well.
Regardless of what the county should agree to.
Right. Now, the interesting thing is you can opt out now, according to the state requirements, and later decide to opt back in. And depends on what facet of it that you want to get involved in. For example, Orion Township, they've taken on the responsibility of growing marijuana, and they have certain stringent requirements in which there's a large building where it's being produced, I think something like 800,000 square feet or something. Massive.
Will they allow private individuals to grow it?
No,
Okay.
no. And they will not allow in Orion Township for brick and mortar to sell marijuana as well. Now here's a further interesting thing created by the state of Michigan. Every person out there, meaning you and you, can grow.
You and you.
Showed up to vote. That's how it got passed in the state of Michigan, I think.
I see.
You do see. I have to rib him every once in a while over here and let him know that I'm still breathing. Okay, good job. So anyway, it is legal, so no matter what you think of it out there, you know, it is something which the township and the villages have to determine in what degree they want to get involved in, you know, and there's such things as growing it, transporting it, and of course selling it as well.
Well, there's the aspect of selling it locally, being a main production supplier and shipping it out like a truck farm.
Right. Now here's the point. If they're shipping marijuana through your town, you can't have an ordinance to stop it.
Really?
Really.
Oh,
They
okay.
can, you know, and if that's same as a resident that's smoking marijuana in their car. I mean, if they're driving through town, you can't stop them either.
That may be so, unless the person is driving erratically and is influenced by that weed.
Right. They would be going like this and it has happened.
Well, say someone is driving erratically and it's because he's under the influence of marijuana. I don't know, but can the police test for that?
Yes, they can, but for marijuana, they have to do a blood test to find it. For any kind of a drug, actually.
Is that where implied consent comes in?
But they can smell it, so that would give them due cause for the arrest.
Well, yeah.
And detain you in a little cell until you're ready to get your blood
But
test.
no, officer, it was this cologne.
Right. All right. You say, yeah, that cologne, yeah, I could hardly write this ticket, you know, breathing through the window. No, I understand that there's going to be implications here in the police force, of course, and that's why the police chief was there. Very
Okay.
concerned in the fact that it's going to cause other issues, you know, with the residency in the community.
Especially from the stories you read, sometimes other things get mixed in with it that can definitely affect your ability to drive or do anything.
And speaking of other things, we'll be back right after this with other things. Welcome back to Minutes by Minute. I'm Elgin Nichols.
And I'm Dave Kenny.
And we are talking about the Village Council and Planning Commission joint meeting, April 16th.
Interesting name.
Yes, because they're talking about marijuana throughout
Right.
this thing. And so anyway, what they did is they came down to an issue of conversation throughout the group here. And Mrs. Logan, who serves on the Village Council, was very much to the point that, hey, look, the residents voted for it, and we can't obstruct what the residents want. So we need to move forward with this. And that was her point of view. And she pointed out again that 70% of the village district voted for the legalization. So we need to do what's right, you know, in behalf of the residency. So anyway, others had other comments to be made as they went along. Mr. Bailey, he said, he said you might just well shut it down. He said for now to reconsider, because he said the state hasn't really come forward with all their input at this point and what's actually going to happen in terms of the regulation or law.
A few years ago, they had a similar regulation at the state level, but it was too confusing
It was.
for the local
Yeah,
people to
and that's
work with.
actually the situation now. And of course, the new governor, she's going to make a statement, I guess, in the first part of May here,
Oh,
as far as what can be done, what can't be done, and some of the issues involved, questions that
but
these
whatever
people
she
would have.
says has to be approved by the, what is it, the House and the Senate?
House and the Senate. Well, I don't think so. That could be an administrative decision based on her interpretation of the law.
Oh, okay.
I think that's the way it'll work. But there's a point where it came to, they said, well, should we opt out and then later opt in, or what should we do? Well, Helmo, she spoke up and she says, I think we need a moratorium on it until that we need to move forward on this. We need to also have a town hall meeting. And she said, I suggest within 45 days we do that so residents can provide input as to, what we should do here. Should we grow it? Should we sell it? Should we what? And if we sell it, where? There are regulations concerning 1,000 feet from any educational facility. There's other regulations or guidelines as well. And that's why the point was...
Is that the same regulation that applies to bars?
Probably not, because it's not handled the same way as liquor is. It's a whole different regulation. And why they didn't try to incorporate the two, I don't know.
Yeah, it seems like,
Yeah, maybe they couldn't agree in the House and the Senate. Well, they've never had that before.
Well, there's probably also a body of existing laws dealing with liquor and its distribution and what have you.
Oh, yeah, there are some,
Yeah.
federal regulations there.
Sure.
And that came up too. As a matter of fact, one of the individuals says, well, what about this federal law? It's illegal, to sell marijuana or to use marijuana.
And in the general concept, federal law always trumps anybody else.
Right. And Bob Davis, as the attorney, he said, well, here's the situation. Other states have approved it. He said, and legalized it within their state. But he said, can the federal government put a stop to it? Yes. He said they could. But he said, are they going to? He didn't think the judicial department was going to do that.
Well, it's probably up to them to what degree they want to enforce that law.
Yeah, he said they've never pushed to enforce it, and he didn't think that they would enforce it. So, but he said it remains to be seen. But he said yes. He said they could enforce it if they wanted to. He said there's a law in the books. But we'll have to see what happens there. So anyway, what came as a final on this was that a motion was made by Maureen Helmuth to have a moratorium for 60 days on this. Within 45 days, have a hall meeting. And
Okay.
they agreed that that was the route to go, and that pretty much took care of that meeting. Now, the next one I want to talk about is the regular meeting of the Pollyant Trail Management Council, which was held on Wednesday, April 17th, at the Oxford Village offices. They did the respect to the flag, of course. Curtis Wright is the chairperson, and he is the clerk, of course, for Oxford Township as well. And I was asked to do the prayer, which I did. I said, please help us all.
Oh, please.
And, yes. A roll call was taken, and let me see, Curtis Wright was there, Mike McDonald, Elgin Nichols. Donnie Steele was running a little bit late that day, but she did show up shortly after. Aaron Watley, of course, who's the director of Orion Township, Parks and Rec. Eric Sant, who was a trustee with Addison Township. He was there as well. Kevin Green is citizen rep. He was there, and Linda Moran, of course, who is the trail manager. Members who were absent was Bruce Pearson, who was excused. He was on vacation. Joe Frost, who was also excused, but there's a question. Joe has other commitments, with the county. So it's been an issue. And so one of the things that they did talk about down the line is the new charter, for Pollyant Trail. And the person that they're going to fit into that slot, where they couldn't before, was...
Did the existing charter have a clock on it such that it expired?
Well, you can review it every so many years if you want to, if it needs to be changed. There's nothing saying that you can't do it tomorrow if a change needs to be made. But the village manager was included as an individual that could serve on this board. And more likely, he would be the one that would do it. Okay, he has a pretty good interest in it as well. So, excuse me, so that would be Mr. Madore. And we'll talk a little bit more about that down the line here. Approval of the agenda was approved immediately. Consent agenda, which included $12,000, ready for this? $32.96. Not too bad. Not too shabby.
That was a
not too
consent
bad.
agenda?
That's in the consent agenda under the treasurer's report.
Oh, okay.
Yep. Okay, you knew that though, right? Because you
Well-
handle it for the,
Well, now that you said treasurer, I said, okay, yeah.
you're searching for a word there.
Well, it could have been
Treasurer.
a bill. It could have been a bill coming in from the side.
It could, yeah, but Bill Service was busy at the time. He couldn't make it. Okay, They received and filed the financial report, of course, for March 2019, and it was approved, forward. Public comments. They checked around, and actually there was nobody that wanted to comment other than Linda Moran. And she had a couple of statements, and we'll talk about that, because the citizens report was next, and there was nothing on the citizens report, and then the trail manager's report. And a number of things Linda Moran wanted to talk about, of course, was a website. I don't know if you recall the last
Got hacked,
conversation
didn't
we
it?
had. Well, the individual that was doing it before wasn't responsive in providing information, to the Pollyant Trail. So they put out
Bids.
proposed bids, and they actually settled on somebody, and we'll talk about that down the line here. So the website was the first thing that she did discuss verbally, and by the way, everything that she talked about verbally on this report will actually be received and filed, and documentation. If folks want to see it, it'll be on OCCTV.org or within the minutes for the Pollyant Trail as a copy. Okay, next thing was the mile markers. She did discuss the mile markers that are going to be going in on the Pollyant Trail in several location areas. Also signs attached to the post that will be completed about April 20th.
Is that one of those
coming up.
signs that says "You are here," but that's all it says?
No, it says something more. You are lost,
But you are here.
and there are no phones. So that's what it might be, or it could be beware of porcupines, beware of skunks. Could be almost anything. Anyway, I don't think so. Mile markers let you know that you are there, right? Like you said. And talking about you are there, we'll be back right after this. Welcome back to Minutes by Minute. I'm Elgin Nichols.
And I'm Dave Kenny.
And we are talking about the Pollyant Trail Management meeting that was held, and Linda Moran, who is executive director. No, she's the trail manager. And by the way, she's doing a great job out
Yep.
there. You see her almost everywhere. So pop up here. There's Linda. She's all over. But and she's probably driving a green machine.
What?
She's got a brand new green machine called a Gator.
A gator?
Yeah,
Oh.
she is, so she drives that around.
She
Has a
probably gets it-
forklift. If you're in the wrong spot, she picks
She
you up
probably
and moves
gives herself dispensation to use it.
Yeah. She has full power to use it, trust me.
I see.
And anybody who wants to mess with her, I wouldn't advise it.
No.
Okay. So anyway, she's small but mighty. Then, let me see, paper maps, we requested that they are going to be available soon. She said that we need maps, and she said she's submitted 2 quotes for the maps, in which we'll talk about. Lawn waste was the problem. Remember we talked about that? People were dumping trash along the trail, down the trail.
Are they
She's-
dumping it adjacent to their property, or are people driving this stuff out and dumping it on the trail?
Yes.
Oh,
That would be the case, both. But anyway, so she's trying to curtail that, and she's talked to a number of people, I guess, to get it corrected. Pure Michigan, as you know, they've applied for Pure Michigan recognition, and she's so far not received any response like she would have thought. They would have been jumping up with joy. But so she's chasing that one to find out why. Parking lot naming, we'll talk about that in a few minutes, but there's a number of parking lots which don't have an identification, so they want to be able to do that. We could call it David, we could call it Kenny, we could call it Joe, we could call it whatever. But
thank
anyway.
you, Elgin.
You're welcome. Got recognition there. Okay, and then she said that the Leonard parking lot as well, and she thought that they should have certain names associated with it, but when it came down to the actual discussion, the board actually felt that it should be taken to the various government entities and have them discuss it, and as far as what they want to name it. Now, a good point came up from Mike McDonald, and that this is an old railroad track originally, and they used to call it, what do they call railroad grounds?
DNR?
No. Anyway,
Railroad bed.
yeah, one of those things.
It's a bed.
Yeah, but it's something else. but I'll
Used
talk
to
about
be
it.
track,
Probably got
but they're
on my
not there
notes
anymore,
here.
so it's just the
Could
bed
be a
now.
track, could be the bed. Yeah, lay in the bed and, get run over by a non-train. Okay, now it'd be bicycles and tricycles and everything. Okay, public comments. Again, Lena Moran talked about the cleanup operation that's going to take place, along the trail. And let me see what else she had going here. The Trail Day, which April 13th, National Open Trail Day. So she did discuss that to some degree. Citizen representative report, Kevin Green had nothing. Trail manager, that was pretty much it. New business, naming of the Pollyant Trail properties. Okay, here we go. To set it aside was the agreement to do because they want to list examples of proposed property identification names. Maybe, every community might have a different idea as what to name the parking lot or name the section of trail or whatever.
Oh, you mean auxiliary property?
Right, auxiliary property. Request input from local government, councils and boards, discussion about signs, designs, and identifiers. Now this is where you come in. You should come in and sit in the audience and make these recommendations.
I should.
Yeah, you should. It'd be a very interesting conversation. Shouldn't you have a sign with two sides on it? Shouldn't you have one that spins when the wind goes? Or when you go?
Should it start at one end and end at the other in Leonard, or go all the way to Lake Orion and accumulate miles? Or when you start in Lake Orion, will it start at one? When you start
Right.
at Leonard, will it start at one?
Or could you use it as a frisbee? I mean,
A frisbee, I don't know.
to the next
I know
mile
they have
marker.
a nicely marked one in Lake Orion on Indianwood Road.
They do, and that's kind of the idea, they're shooting for. Have you been over there
Yeah,
on the trail?
no, not on the trail, but I know where that parking lot is.
Oh, you probably drove your car over there and
Thought about it
On
for a
the
while
trail?
and then moved on.
okay, checked it. He came, he saw, and he left. Okay, that's what happened there.
Whatever that Latin term is.
Right. New business, naming of Pollyant Trail properties, and we just covered that. And citizens representative appointment. Okay. Kevin Green's appointment had expired, and it runs for 2 years. And lucky for the Pollyant Trail people and the council, he agreed to take the position again.
He re-upped.
He re-upped again. So it was unanimous that he become the representative, non-voting citizen at large. Okay, so we're happy to have him back. Kevin, if you're watching this. Pad event request for the Holy Spokes. I didn't say Holy Smokes. That we already covered in the village. This is Holy Spokes. And what it is approve the request for Holy Spokes to utilize Pollyant Trail for an event scheduled for May 15th. May 15th.
Sounds like it'll be a religious experience.
You never know. Could be smoking. I don't know. Contingent with on receipt of all required documents and of course insurance policy too. Now, unfinished business, website contractor. This is where they had quite a discussion as did they want to keep the existing person who has been non-compliant and not producing a
Non-responsive.
whole lot,
Yeah.
non-responsive, or shall they go with somebody new? They had a discussion on that, and Chairman Curtis Wright approved, and he said that the website services, as stated, should be approved for OCS design contract. Now she used to do work for the station here at one time.
At one time, yes.
Yeah, and then she left, went to work for a larger company.
Right, gained employment somewhere else.
Right,
And
and she trained somebody to take her spot here who we found it didn't really work for us either.
really?
Yeah, there's changes Bill would have liked to have made, I think, and was non-responsive in that area.
I don't
I
know if
believe a
that's-
while back.
Perhaps we'll let that one lie.
We have a coward over on this side that refuses
No,
to
we
speak
have a
about it, but
corrector.
anyway, a corrector, a non-corrector. Okay, so
Be
anyway.
nice about it.
So anyway, it was approved that this would be the contract, and for the amount of $1,500 to be expensed on a certain account. Okay, so we're going to move forward with it, and we're eventually Pollyant Trail will have a decent website to work with. So it's quite an interesting discussion. If you want to catch it, go to OCCTV.org, and check it out. Okay, the Pollyant Trail Management Council interlocal agreement. This is the agreement between the various government entities, between Addison Township, Leonard, and so forth. And that's been going on for a while, and Curtis Wright has actually led the charge on this and doing all the changes to it. And pretty much was reviewed and approved. And I think will be finalized completely in the next meeting coming up in May. And then next was the Pollyant Trail Management Council bylaws, reviews, and approval. Chairman Wright reviewed all changes with all the members, and action was to table for further consideration and approval, I think, coming up also in May. So with that, what's coming up?
We do have some meetings in May.
In May, yes, we do.
On 5/6 at 7 o'clock, the Village of Oxford Zoning Board of Appeals, and once again, check to see if they're actually going to have a meeting. And on 5/7 at 7 o'clock, the Village of Oxford Planning Commission. On 5/8 at 6:30, the Oxford Township Board of Trustees. And on 5/9 at 7 o'clock, the Oxford Township Planning Commission. And that's all she wrote.
Well, we have some meetings coming up, so you folks might want to catch up to those meetings. Like you said, check with a couple, make sure that they haven't been canceled.
All right.
Until then, I'm Elgin Nichols.
And I'm Dave Kenny.
Catch you next time right here on Minutes by Minute.
See you then.